Yes, as Deb mentioned, we're called Manyone Asia. We're a firm that works with design in many areas. We're all across Europe, but the part that I'm involved in is in Singapore and Hong Kong. Our background is quite important to sort of what we do now. We have this very strong digital and product design background. Always human-centered, but sort of slowly over a number of years, we started moving into building things for what we then call the real world. And it was quite liberating, actually. The whole idea of figuring out what does it actually mean to be on time? What does it actually mean to live in an urban setting? And designing for that rather than purely digital or very abstract ways. And of course, we hadn't only done, and we still sort of don't only sort of go back to that. Today it is more of a combination, but we've done a lot of design fiction work, for example, for the city of Stockholm. We'd worked with adaptive urban wayfinding, so the designs that sort of figure out what's going on and point you in the right direction. We've even designed a car and the whole ecosystem around it that focuses on sustainability and electrical vehicle as a way of enabling movement. But regardless of what we were working on, really, there was this one thing that just struck us, and that is that we always felt that we wanted to hear from more people. We kept sort of being the annoying ones who were sort of jumping up and down at the back and raising our hand and going, but could we also hear from this group? Or how did you go about this? How many people were involved? So we also wanted to really share what we thought were interesting starting points. We really essentially just wanted to have a very clear dialogue when we were doing research, especially in urban settings. And here's a very good example. In Singapore, it's not necessarily just about new walking paths. It's about the great work opportunities that shade brings. If you're in a subtropic climate, it's incredibly important that, yes, you can move about, but it's also incredibly important that you can move about in a way that doesn't actually fry you to a crisp. So when we talk about infrastructure, infrastructure is very, very close to quite natural occurrences. Shade, essentially that whole sort of human nature interface. So yes, but 6-7 years ago, where do we start? That was sort of the question we were looking at. And we knew, and I think Angela mentioned this last week as well, how younger generations usually wouldn't attend town halls or anything like that, and maybe the slightly older generation were less inclined towards using technology. And for us, it turned out it was quite obvious, and it still is, prototyping. Essentially, any type of community-informed research and prototyping is less about asking, less about the interviews, and more about involving people in the doing and the experiencing of what we're working on. And we've had this idea that we'd rather learn 2 things now than 20 things in the future. And that's how we've decided to work. It worked fantastically in sort of the digital realm. And we also slowly found that this very focused, some call it limited, but for us, focused, hands-on approach actually attracted pretty much all generations. It didn't really matter, not only age, but what your socioeconomic background or your experience in these things were. Everyone sort of came on board. And the question is, well, why? Prototyping really is about common sense. It's designing with common sense. If you actually have to create something and hold it in your hands and see how it works, you will do really smart things. And of course, prototyping can also be very, very playful, which lowers barriers. And we always believe that play is a hugely important part of any very, very serious topic. And as you are creators as well, all of you, you know that in any project, we always kind of want to understand really what is the need, what is the expectation, and also what is the ability, not only to create it, but then use it once it's been realized. Well, and here's a fantastic thing. With this very community informed way of prototyping. There is no way you can misinterpret, for example, expectation when you're co-creating a library for a university with a very diverse and outspoken student and faculty. And the whole idea of needs, it is crystal clear when you hear from a frustrated 3-year-old and maybe an 83-year-old, like you realize that every single bench that's non-transactional have been removed along a shopping street. That is sort of that very direct and very clear input that we're looking for. And we're noticing also that any work that is looking sort of post-COVID-19 world, this level of involvement and clarity and speed will be very, very welcome. So I wanted to show you a little bit what this might look like and what's looked like over the years. Sometimes it's obviously incredibly low tech. The image on the left there, that's a bunch of blue tape and items of clothing on the floor to essentially figure out how we might welcome people into a certain type of space. The one on the right, this is, I mentioned it now for the second time, benches. I love benches. This is the only non-transactional bench you can find in Marylebone in central London that's not in a park. It happens to be outside one of the Academy's media partners, Monocle's shop, but that's not really intentional. But then figuring out where would people put these benches if they had a chance to do that. It is a lovely thing to walk up to someone on the high street with a bench in hand and say, hi, where would you like to put this bench? That is very hands-on prototyping. You get very strange looks as well, but that's okay. Having that playful aspect is something that I'm sure many of you recognize and champion as well. What we've always wanted to do is to make sure that there's no limitations on people's own abilities. Whether you have full functionality of your body, whether you have, whether you're very young, whether you've not done this type of work before, whether you have time, whether you don't want to have time, we always make sure that we have a way of involving everyone. I want to show you something else that's actually very much work in progress. So you get to see my hand-drawn sketches. As you can tell, I'm certainly not a visual designer. But this is something we're looking at right now, actually, which is how might we bring local high streets and shops back to life as restrictions are easing in different parts of the world. And this one actually started identifying some 20 points of action or items that we could affect in a streetscape that can be updated with essentially little or very, very, very few approval steps in an approval process, and with tiny budgets, 100 euros, 10,000 euros tops. So some of the things that came out of this was for stores and for stores to have their phone numbers or their WhatsApp IDs in huge type sizes on their windows, benches outside or nearby where people can wait and the staff brings their purchases out. So it's a little bit like ordering online and being at home. Yeah, it's the complete opposite. It's in your community, but it sort of uses that same simplicity and also, to be frank, the safety aspect of it. Libraries putting more return boxes outside, and in some instances, the whole idea of using signage. One street that we were looking at, there's a huge, massive information sign outside the local cinema. We're going to do some testing using that to actually inform about what else is going on the street, which shops are closed, who's open, and all of that. So you don't always need to go into the middle of things to see what's available. This is a picture from Stockholm, just around the corner from our Stockholm studio. And we might be going slightly crazy here, I think, possibly. The idea of sort of summer streets, which is a very big thing in the city of Stockholm and elsewhere in the world as well. Essentially, we close the streets off to cars and other traffic during the summers and sort of bring out benches and all. That is all good, but we decided that we want to take this one step further. It's good that businesses can be involved and they don't have to have transactional seating, transactional activities outside like this shop has done. But we actually wanted to really take this experience that we have, all this work that we've done so far, and just go all in, extra everything on absolutely everything. So if all goes well, later in the summer, we are going to bring in all of the things that you see on the screen to either this street or one of the side streets. And for 6 hours, we are going to have residents and the local business owners essentially craft the types of spaces, places, extensions, etc., that they want. This is also part of another thing that we believe very, very strongly in, and that is that whenever something like this happens, you really need to obviously bring in the local stakeholders, City Hall, etc., to not necessarily interact always, but just to see how these things come about, that iterative process. There's a lot of power in seeing that, and also understanding that something doesn't have to be finished. It doesn't have to be there forever. This is a 6-hour project. It's going to be gone before you know it, but a lot of things will be learned from that for a short period of time. And what we're going to look at, which often gets missed, at least in the context of Stockholm, is that it's not only about generations. It is also about time of day, and especially for children. When you go to school, when you come home from school, what you do after school, what you do on the weekends, are very, very often incredibly different things. So we want to capture that. So after tons of missteps over a number of years and successes, luckily, we've really started seeing ourselves more and more as enablers to offer up this way, or a way to play even, for a community to arrive at a common goal. And of course, one of the main reasons there's just to sort of stop the infighting. Opinions are amazing. If they clash, they don't really lead anywhere, but if they can work with each other, they go somewhere. And we have this opportunity as a fairly well-known agency, as people who have the opportunity to speak for more individuals, to actually bring these results in front of decision makers. We enable that to happen. And also to sort of force a bit of change. With the slightly crazy idea there of the street where we want to run the 6-hour project, well, the decision makers in City Hall, they will see that what they see there is the application. This is the community input. It's not filling out the forms. It's not doing the administration. They can help out with that because the community has done their bit. And of course, just finding more ways for people to use the power of design and prototyping in any setting to communicate, to learn a bit more. So we were talking about, we wanted to hear from more people. We wanted to involve more people. And yeah, we did. We were very happy with that. And this is a lovely quote that we got from one of our projects. And it is enough to feel and want and have ideas, but very, very often it's so easy to overlook the proof points. And through a lot of the prototyping projects that we've involved, or essentially we've followed the lead of the communities, we've managed to do that as well. So we're very, very happy about that. Thank you for this. Please do get in touch, and as it says up in the right-hand corner, do get involved with the Academy. This is a fantastic opportunity to really contribute, share. Next time and the weeks after, I'm sure that a lot of you will be doing the presentations instead, and I really look forward to that. So thank you.